Joining me now from Glasgow, Jeane Freeman from the Yes campaign. She's got a background in Labour politics and been a senior political advisor to the then Labour First Minister, Jack McConnell, but she is now campaigning for independence. Jeane Freeman, the battle's clearly on for the Labour vote, if I can put it that way, particularly in the west of Scotland, and to do with social services. Why is Alex Salmond and the Yes campaign saying that if Scotland stays in the Union, they risk a privatised NHS, when the only person that can privatise the NHS is Alex Salmond?
Well, the campaign is saying that because whilst the Scottish Parliament currently has power over the shape and nature of the NHS in Scotland, what we don't have is control over the finances. As you know, the finances that come to Scotland to spend on our public services come as part of a formula which is based on how much public expenditure on those services is made in England and Wales. So we may have control over the kind of NHS we want in Scotland. What we don't have control over is the total financial package it would allow us to fund it. But
there are two separate issues here then. Let's take them one at a time. One is privatisation. The other is the amount of money you get to run the health service. So can we establish right away, regardless of the amount of money, that there is no danger of Scotland having a privatised health service unless the Scottish Parliament decided that's what it wants?
No, we can't establish that, Andrew, because there is the transatlantic trade and investment agreement that is currently being negotiated between the European Union and the United States, where the UK government has refused to exempt the National Health Service from that agreement. What that agreement will do is open up the market of the NHS, and therefore, let me finish.
That's a European issue.
No,
that's a European issue.
No, Andrew, it's not, and you actually know that. It is a UK government issue, because if the UK government does not exempt the National Health Service and we remain part of the Union, no matter what our Scottish Parliament might want to do about the NHS in Scotland, the market for the UK, because it is the UK that signs it, is then open to private companies coming in, and they can insist upon doing that. So you cannot separate these two matters in the way that the No campaign would like us to be able to do. And Labour supporters across Scotland are coming increasingly to realise that.
So let me get this right. You're having now had to admit that threats of Tory privatisation in Scotland can work because you control your own health service. You're now saying the danger might come from a free trade agreement that hasn't even been agreed or signed.
Well, I think, Andrew, you're mistaking me for a politician, and an SNP politician at that. I have not asserted any of the things that you are suggesting. I represent Women for Independence, and we are very clear that the privatisation agenda south of the border is a threat to our National Health Service because of the reason I've given you, and because we do not control in Scotland the total finances that Scotland earns, because that comes back to us from the Treasury based on that formula I mentioned. So let's be crystal clear about who is asserting what. And the debate is actually about what Labour supporters in Scotland want to do. And they increasingly recognise that Labour in Scotland is run by the United Kingdom, is run by London Labour, and they're conflating a Labour versus SNP argument with an argument about independence, which is about the decisions in Scotland being taken by the people who live and work in Scotland.
Let's come on to the second issue then, which is the amount of money.
Sure.
Is it not a fact that every year under the last Labour government, since '97, and every year under this coalition government, Scotland, along with the rest of the UK, has had an increased health budget?
No, it's not, actually.
It's not?
No, I know that Alistair Darling asserted that, and that's perhaps where you've taken it from. But actually, the Ombudsman on National Statistics followed up the Andy Burnham question. Now, that's the Labour UK Shadow Health spokesperson, his assertion that that claim was not true. And the Ombudsman said Andy Burnham was right. And for the last 2 years at least, in real terms, the spend at UK level by the Westminster government has declined on health.
So how much has the health budget been cut in Scotland?
The health budget has not been cut in Scotland because our Parliament has taken a decision to ring-fence health spending in Scotland and protect it. But you can only do that within the limited pot of money that comes north from the Treasury, which is significantly less than Scotland contributes to that Treasury.
Well, that depends which way you look at it. But the fact is, when it comes to health spending, you could move money from anywhere in the Scottish budget to health if you wanted to. And if you still felt there wasn't enough money, even as things stand now, you could increase tax to increase spending on health. But you've chosen to do none of that.
No, not true. Not true. We're dancing on the head.
What taxes have you increased?
We're dancing on the head of a pin here. Well, again, Andrew, I am not an elected politician, so I don't get to increase or decrease taxes. You're mixing me up with somebody else. But we are dancing on the head of a pin here. Because if you cut health, if you increase health spending, then that would mean that in Scotland, because of that fixed money, not because of the resources we earn in Scotland and contribute to the UK, but because of the fixed amount of money, we would need to cut spending on education or justice or housing. That's what that would mean, your argument. And in terms of increasing taxes, can I remind you that people in Scotland already pay taxes for the National Health Service? So are you seriously suggesting that we would pay twice for a health service simply because down south the UK government wants to decrease its spending on health by introducing privatisation and market forces? That's a nonsense.
As you know, I wasn't suggesting that, but we've run out of time. Jeane Freeman, thanks for joining us from Glasgow. Where are you on this?
I don't think